Greetings, my dear friends. This is Chax, once again simplifying a new region in a new episode of Chax Simplifies. This time I'm picking up the region of the Middle East, probably the most complex in the world. For today's discussion, I will limit myself to the Arabian Peninsula, Iraq, Iran, and Turkey. We will talk mainly about the recent past and not delve too far into history. We'll talk about the events that have shaped what the Middle East is today and how it would be tomorrow. This region is home to three failing states: Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. The three civil wars in these three states. Yet you will find in the shadows two countries which are almost always involved: Iran and Saudi Arabia. Their rivalry is probably approaching Cold War status. The Arab Spring of 2011 brought in a whiff of fresh air, however, could not sustain. In this cauldron of conflict, people turned to a dream where everything would be perfect, a dream of the Caliphate. This obviously was born out of a political, belligerent, aggressive Islam. New alliances kept forming, often confusing, often confounding. However, we really cannot understand this region better unless we go into the history of the two major powers that are here, the Saudi Arabia and Iran. Let's start with one by one. The fall of the Ottoman Empire after the First World War, the dissolution of the Caliphate, led to a situation of flux and conflict in the Arabian Peninsula, wherein Al Saud took over most of the region which is today called Saudi Arabia and formed the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. This was recognized in 1932 with the House of Saud, the monarchy. In 1938, phenomenal deposits of oil were discovered. The monarchy grew rich. It bought itself legitimacy in the international community by aligning itself with the US and accepting to denominate all oil sales in US dollars in return for continued unquestioned support to the House of Saud and the love from the people by constructing roads, highways, cities, hospitals, and ensuring a good, comfortable life for its citizens. On the other hand, Iran also had phenomenal oil deposits discovered in the early 1900s, yet was invaded by the Russians, the Soviets, the Brits, at least twice each till 1941. In 1953, with active support and connivance, Reza Shah deposed a popular Prime Minister Mossadegh. He wanted to set up a westernized, secular Iran, something the local population was not very much in favor of. This led to Ayatollah Khomeini deposing the Shah in 1979 in a bloody revolution. Suddenly, the dynamics of the region changed. What did we have now? On one hand, we had Saudi Arabia, who thought itself to be the leader of the Muslim world, essentially because it had Mecca and Medina, the two holiest places for Muslims, and it had the power, the clout, and the money. On the other hand, we have Iran, a largely Shia state, which considered itself to be the leader of the Shia world at least, and the true anti-West pro-Islamic country. It started exporting this revolution to the other Gulf states which had a significant Shia population. Therefore, Saudi Arabia felt threatened. It formed the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, and when Iraq invaded Iran in 1982, hoping for a quick, decisive war, and found itself getting bogged down and facing with a situation that it might end up losing the war, Saudi Arabia entered in support of Iraq. In 2003, when the US invaded Iraq to depose Saddam Hussein, both Iran and Saudi Arabia were not much in favor because they felt a stable Iraq under a strong man, Saddam, was an ideal buffer between them. That did not happen. Saddam was deposed, and suddenly the region was in conflict and in turmoil. With no power structure and a major power vacuum, the militias rose to fill the gap. Most of these militias were conservative, extremist, and radicalized either by the Sunni Wahhabi sect or by the Shias, supported from behind by Saudi Arabia and Iran, respectively. The Arab Spring of 2011 started with the pro-democracy, anti-monarchy construct essentially Western in origin, and therefore, while it did blow away for some of the strong men, it also led to dissolution of some of the boundaries and the tribals going back to their own areas. Therefore, you had on one hand Saudi Arabia, a status quo power, which wanted status quo to be maintained, boundaries respected, countries to continue having this concept of nation states. And on the other hand, Iran, which wanted chaos, revolutions, so therefore it could become what is called as the anti-status quo state. Morocco, Libya, Iraq, Yemen bore the brunt. Therefore, in this region, you have three failing states, the states of Syria, Iraq, and Yemen. With changing boundaries, chaos, turmoil, uncertainty staring in their faces, the common Muslim yearned for stability, yearned for a better life, and therefore came the concept of rebirth of the Caliphate. ISIS used this to its advantage, and you had Abu Bakr, who declared himself the Caliph not so far back. The mutation of Islam from a religion to a political, aggressive, conservative religion was complete. In this changing cauldron of turmoil, very obviously you had alliances that were forming, dissolving, and reforming. If you take into account just one example, right? Let's take the current situation in Syria. You have the Kurds who are fighting the ISIS, the US fighting the ISIS, the Turkey on the other side bombing the Kurds but not touching the ISIS, Turkey intervening militarily to create, in its own opinion, a 30-kilometer buffer zone between itself and what the Turks want, the Kurdistan. The outsiders here, China, Russia, and the US, in that ascending order, very happy providing the weapons, sometimes boots on ground. Therefore, this is a region which is very, very confusing. Who is an ally and who is an enemy? This is a region which is largely destabilized, largely in turmoil. Religious fundamentalism is getting more and more acute. Militias increasingly getting independent of the hand that is feeding them. Therefore, should we be worried? Of course we should. Because we have a region in flux, people migrating from here into Europe, into other countries, in many ways, creating turmoil in those countries in Europe, leading to what today is Islamophobia and extremism in Europe. Will this affect each of us in our daily lives? It will. From the price of oil to the suspicion on anything Muslim, this is the ideal breeding ground for extremism. Thank you, my dear friends. It was great presenting this to you, and as always, I would welcome your comments, reactions, and suggestions on new topics. Thank you. Have a great day.